So welcome everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Victoria Coleman, the Executive Director of the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom. Welcome to the 8th session of the Big Love Festival, and I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. I have to say I'm really excited about this session. It's called Wisdom and Compassion in the Eye of the Storm, and it's going to last 90 minutes. It's longer than our other sessions in the festival because it's more interactive. We will have discussions, we're going to brainstorm, we will challenge ourselves. It's going to be great. The background to this is I had a conversation with Paul about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, where I was sharing with him my anxiety and concern about climate change, the disintegration of structures. The US election was coming up and I was pretty anxious and trying to sort it all out in my brain and just sharing it with him. And he shared with me the work of Joanna Macy, and he said that she describes these 3 narratives of, you know, people in denial, simply can't cope with the whole extremes that we're seeing, the disintegration that we're seeing, climate change and so on. So that people just trying to carry on as normal. And then you have people who are feeling overwhelmed, are watching the news a lot and social media and feeling anxiety and getting caught up in all of that. And then you have people who are courageously trying to work for a more sustainable world that's going to nourish all of us and for future generations. And it struck me that I was sort of moving between those 3 narratives, even in the space of a day or even in the space of an hour. And what Paul shared with me when he explained that, I thought, oh, that's really helpful. And I wanted to bring that into the festival because it really resonated for me. So I asked him to put together a session, and I asked him to include Ros, who's a wonderful facilitator as well, and they happily agreed. So let me just share a little bit more about Paul and Ros with you. So Paul combines his Buddhist and secular mindfulness teaching with his eco-dharma practices, and he's currently working on Buddhist attitudes to racial justice and related issues. He's a Buddhist practitioner and a teacher for more than 25 years. He has a master's in action inquiry from Bath University in England. He's completed teacher training in mindfulness-based stress reduction program. He has trained in a program developed by Joanna Macy called The Work That Reconnects. He has studied secular Dharma for 2 years at Bodhi College in England, and he brings all these skills and experience to his work, including a series of mindfulness-based courses that he's designed to help people, including climate activists, to thrive and survive in these chaotic and uncertain times. He also works a lot with the 16 Guidelines framework. Ros Boughtflower is an accredited facilitator and a developer in the Building Balanced Empathy course that FDCW offers. She is also one of the developers and a trainer and a facilitator in the Art of Fulfillment program, which was also developed by FDCW. She's a qualified coach, she's a mentor, she's a trained teacher in mindfulness-based stress reduction, and she works at the London Centre for Mindfulness. She's also trained in action inquiry at Bath University in England. She works in business, corporates, not-for-profit, government, community-based organisations, and more recently within the National Health Service in England and in education. She's currently working with refugees. Ros brings a joyful and compassionate energy, and she draws on her Buddhist background to offer a more accessible and modern secular approach. So without any further talking from me, I'm going to hand over to Ros and Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria. What a wonderful introduction. I'm feeling rather embarrassed, actually. You said you were excited. I confess that I thought, because I have been for some days this week, I'd be terrified at the moment because the task we're attempting today is huge. It's verging on impossible in some ways. But actually, I am experiencing a real calm at the moment. So I'm just sitting in the eye of my own storm. So I just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for coming. Ros is here. I'm so delighted. She's going to look after a very special meditation during proceedings, and also keep an eye on me, because I tend to kind of wander off into flights of fantasy and to drag me back down to earth. So I'm going to ask you just to say hello. A couple of secrets I want to share with you is that we are partners and we have the same pet name for each other. So I'm Bunny and she's Bunny. Okay. The other thing is I've got a very strong suspicion she's still in her pajama trousers, and she told me not to tell anybody. But anyway, you can ask.
So untrue.
Right. So over to you, Bunny.
I've been booted out of the office and put in the kitchen. Nice to see everybody today. Really looking forward to the session.
Okay, thank you. So what is this storm? This storm that we're trying to get into the eye of is actually, we are facing extinction. I'm smiling at this. It's just that, just the incredible, kind of things that we need to do. And the invitation today is to embrace extinction. Okay, and in order to do that, I was thinking, how do I kind of describe the essence of this? And I came up yesterday actually with this idea of taking refuge, and taking refuge in what I've called the 3 Gs. I'm taking refuge in grounding ourselves in the present moment, taking refuge in the cultivation of gratitude, and also taking refuge in the group, in community. And community, as we all as a species, as humanity, face this threat of extinction, this huge storm, is one of the most important things that we need to try to generate. So one thing about today is we have a community here, and this is about engagement and participation. So I'm really going to ask that you give your full engagement and participation, and go into the breakout rooms when we open them. And even if nobody speaks your particular language, go in anyway and communicate in different ways. And I was thinking about the guidelines, the 16 guidelines. And I think what we need, if you can remember these, the one thing we need in this process is number 5, kindness. Kindness for each other, but also kindness for ourselves. So self-care is important here. We're going to be facing some challenging situations and turning towards them. And the second guideline is number 10, which is forgiveness. And I'm asking that for me personally, because I'm bound to mess up on technology or make just talk too long or something. So please be forgiving for any sort of patchiness in what we do. But above all, and I think this is, for me, I was thinking about what guideline is most important in our current situations as humankind. And I think a lot of people talk about hope, and Greta Thunberg said hope's not enough anymore. What we need now is courage. And also from Lama Yeshe right at the beginning of this Big Love Festival said, and we also need to act. It's not about words, it's about action. So those to me are the 2 kind of driving forces behind our task, and what I'd like to invite you to consider today. So what I said, the first G was grounding, and grounding in the present moment. So I'd like to just guide you in a practice for 5 minutes or so, just to somewhere we can come back to. And when those of you saw Alison Murdoch on, I think it was on Tuesday, she mentioned that Lama Yeshe, the visionary for this whole universal education adventure, would advise that we put our mind where our body is. And this is so profound. And many times in the past, as a Tibetan Buddhist, I've tended to be in my head. And so if somebody told me to put my mind in my body, where my body is, I'd probably try to imagine my body from my head. But what it really means is get into your body. So I'd like to just invite you to this very simple exercise. So just you make yourself comfortable. Okay. And the first thing I invite you to do is just to rub your hands together really vigorously. Okay. And clap. So we're getting some energy in your hands. And then put the backs of your hands, just rest them on your legs. Close your eyes. And let your awareness go to the tingling and the throbbing and the coolness or warmth in your hands. That's where your mind is going. And noticing the pressure of the back of your hands on your legs. And then allowing your awareness to drop all the way down with gravity to your feet. And your feet connected with the floor, and noticing the sensations there as well. There may be some tingling, there may be some numbness. The sensation of the pressure of your feet on the floor, and it might be soft because there's a carpet, or hard because there's wood. Sensation of your feet inside your shoes or slippers. And just being aware that this connection with the floor is also our connection with the earth itself. And actually the earth element we're experiencing in our bodies is exactly the same as the earth element beneath us. We're made of the same stuff, including this one particular element. And then bringing your awareness up your body. So upper body, lift your spine, open your chest, soften your shoulders, becoming aware of the sensations in your face and softening the muscles there. And then invite to take 3 deep breaths, and taking the breath all the way back down to your feet on the floor, making the connection with the earth and the earth element, and exhaling as the breath comes back up the body. And breathing in deep, all the way down, taking the breath down to your feet, the earth element, and bringing that solidity, earthiness all the way back up with the breath as you breathe out. And then one final 3rd breath. And then just settle back on the natural in-breath and out-breath. And allow your awareness to expand to take in your whole body now, your whole body breathing. And again, aware of sensations arising and fading, receiving those. Aware of the body rising and falling with each in-breath and out-breath. So from this reflection, we can realize that we're made of the same stuff as the earth. And the earth is made of the same stuff as us. And what we do to ourselves, we do to the earth. And what we do to the earth impacts and affects us. Okay, so this is a place of refuge when maybe we're becoming overwhelmed with some of the reality that we're facing now. The present moment, grounded in the present moment, is a very special place, and it's actually a place of special, subtle joy as well. So to practice this and revisit is a very healthy habit to build. So I was very pleased with what Victoria said at the beginning, because I kind of was going to tell the story, so I've saved myself a couple of minutes here. So in that conversation with Victoria, and she expressed these 3 stories that Joanna Macy talks about. And the importance of these are stories that we tell ourselves, and we can choose our story. And the first story is the one we're hearing all the time now: business as usual, back to normal. Yeah, and I think if you really think about that and observe, it is not possible. We cannot go back to normal. There is no normal now to go back to. And we're fooling ourselves, and we're hearing it from our politicians and everything. It is impossible. And where we are is what she called the Great Unravelling. And it's such a good word, this. I don't know how it translates, but unraveling, it's just all coming apart. And it's getting worse. And every day, if we hear the news, something else is unraveling. I'll say more about this later. And then we have this third, and these are choices. You know, we choose to try to go back to normal, business as usual. We choose to let the unraveling happen by, you know, either not acting or just making wrong decisions. But there is a third choice, and this is a choice that moves us from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society, a society that we create together that's based on values. You know, all the things we talked about this week, it's based on community. And I include today, you know, we have the opportunity to create, you know, just in a short time, a special community here. And it's based on the belief that we can awaken in our collective consciousness and create something very different from what we have now. And that's the great turning, as Joanna calls it. So this session is about, you know, how do we engage in the great turning individually and collectively. So I want to put a slide up which really looks at Joanna's suggestion how we can go forward, and it's the basic structure of today. So just okay, so we have the three stories there, and the great turning. So we're going to work with the spiral of active hope, which is part of the work that Reconnects, which many of you will be familiar with or have heard about. Joanna Macy's been doing this work for 40 years. She's an amazing influence, you know, on a global basis. And the spiral has been part of this from the very beginning. And it's 4 stages, which we're going to go through very kind of superficially in a way today, although they will be impactful. But, you know, the practice here is to keep revisiting the spiral and go through it individually and collectively and with different groups. So the very start point of the spiral is this rooting in gratitude, which is the first exercise I'm going to do in a few seconds. And this is like the grounding exercise. This is our resource of resilience, and it's our resource of joy when everything seems to be difficult in the world. And then we'll progress around the spiral to the next part, which is honoring the pain of the world. It's actually turning to the storm that we've talked about, facing the storm. And we're all in it together. We need to do this grieving process, really, which is what it is, but acknowledging what it is. And through that, we can come through and see how we are really connected. You know, that we are creatures who are into being, and see our situation with new eyes. And this is the inspiration then that will take us to the final part, which are these seeds that we can sow, the going forth. The word that was used yesterday by Carla was agency, the capacity to act, because very often we become overwhelmed and we feel there's nothing we can do. So what I'd like to do now is invite you to into a short gratitude exercise, which will involve putting you into breakout rooms. So if we could just explain that. So we're going to work on a question for a few moments. So that the thing you'll be asked to do is think about some things I love about being alive on Earth are, and whatever it's coming up for you, things you are grateful for now. So we're looking for the good things for you in your life and things that you express gratitude. And then we're going to, Angie's going to break you out into breakout rooms, and you'll meet up to 4 people in there. Okay. Now, what I would say is might be 3 of those people don't even speak your language, you know, so maybe there are, you know, 3 Portuguese people in there or 3 English people. in the spirit of participation and engagement and courage, I really do kind of suggest you might consider still going in, because we can still communicate in our own language about what we're grateful for. And the other people will be able to, you know, see from yourself. You might not know what the exact words mean, but they'll still get the spirit of what you're doing. And it's a great experiment. You know, we'd ask you to dive deep. Some of you may find yourself in a breakout room and nobody's there. This occasionally happens. And then I just invite you to stay there for the 8 minutes, do some grounding practice and reflect individually. You know, just reflect yourself, because what will happen when you all come out of the breakout rooms, we'll open the chat box and invite you to create an ocean of gratitude by you know, submitting your elements of gratitude, so that we can all share that from the 60 or so people in here. And Ros will be kind of commenting on that as the contributions are coming in. And this is said at Jan Lewis's session on anti-racism the other day, which is a wonderful session. Her professor, Harvard professor, said to her, "Remember the beauty of working together and collaboration." So that's what I'm inviting you to get engaged in today. So things I love about being alive on Earth are, then when you're in your room, you'll have 2 minutes each to talk. You may have longer if there aren't, you know, 4 people in the room. And then when you come out, we share again. So Angie, do you want to break out the rooms? So the invitation is now to record your gratitude in the chat box. We're endeavoring to create an ocean of gratitude in the chat box. So and then Ros is going to kind of comment as seeing if there are any common themes coming through. So yeah, great, thank you. Off you go.
So there's interesting stuff about connection and contact, just even to have the opportunity to connect and learn from other people. Gratitude for actually putting the festival on, and also some very specific ones around gratitude for nature, wind in the trees. That's really kind of visual there, particularly around being part of a community, having found a spiritual teacher. Some also very basic, grateful for being able to breathe and be alive. Health coming in quite a lot. Again, more around Sangha, and also your own Sangha, which might be your children or your family. More spiritual, grateful to be to have met Buddhism, grateful for being alive in nature. Grateful for the various communities we have, right from this community to the FPMT, to also having some direction and sense of purpose in life. And then right on the other side, some really simple things from Marion: coffee, poetry. Sometimes these simple things are the things that really resonate on a daily basis. A lot around Dharma, great for Dharma. Health, family, again, feeling safe. I think particularly at the moment, that's really important for people. And the importance of friends and family. What else have we got? Shelter. So again, coming down to basic, you know, some of the basic things that we need that give us, you know, gratitude. Oh, I like this, Wendy. Opticians, dentists. When you don't have those things, you are so grateful when you need them, and they are there. Grateful to find gifts in the pandemics, and also people that care, so friends and carers, but also the earth that provides this basis for, you know, giving us what we need, and how we draw off that. The sun, oh, it's beautiful. Light, children and schools. I think if you've got children, you're really grateful for having schools when they opened up again. So I think that's kind of the range. Apologies if I've missed anything, but there's a really nice range from the really kind of granular that give us everyday joy from the gratitude to the big things of purpose. And without doubt, the importance of connection and contact with others. So thank you very much. That was very speedy. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Bunny. That was brilliant, that overview. So we're going to now really do the difficult work, and I'm going to invite you to turn towards the storm, yeah, to face the truth, actually, or face the facts. The purpose of the gratitude, along with the grounding in the present moment, is to help us become more resilient in terms of when we are turning towards difficulty. And if it is too much and too overwhelming, then step away again. So this is obviously just trigger a lot, but we're building resilience. So by building practices of mindfulness and being present, and by cultivating gratitude, we become stronger and stronger. So we're more and more able to turn towards the difficulty. And in turning towards the difficulty, that is essential for us to be able to move on and do some of the ambitious kind of development that we talked about earlier on. So I'm going to be very, I think one of the things since, you know, having really committed myself to this work, is that, you know, the things that are facing us now, people are aware of. And for me, it was particularly climate emergency, which they weren't on a large scale 12 months ago, but they certainly are now. But I'm just going to show you one image, which some of you will have seen. So this is where we're moving to honoring our pain for the world. And this is really, it depicts the Great Unravelling. Yeah. And so on the left-hand side, you know, we've got somebody in the government somewhere saying, all we have to do is wash our hands and all will be well. Yeah. And okay, there's now a vaccine on the horizon. It's very encouraging how quickly that came through, because discontinuous change can happen like that. And there's a mini example. I think it's come through much sooner than we really thought it would. But the bad news is there are more pandemics on the way. Environment to the ancient woodlands and all these kind of things, which are allowing the pandemics the viruses to come through in greater number and greater strength. And now we're right in the middle of this, the economic downturn, you know, and facing the prospect of unemployment and poverty and homelessness. And we've hardly time even to think about climate change, but it is not going away. You know, it's coming closer and closer, more fires, floods, the threat of a migrant crisis as well is already happening. But underlying all of this is evidence of this could really be the 6th extinction that we're facing. And that will impact extinction of all species, human, non-human, of the natural environment. So, you know, the picture of the unraveling, if we don't collectively find a way through this, is not particularly encouraging. And I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to hand over to Ros, who's going to help guide a meditation practice related to how you might be feeling just now.
Okay, we're just going to wait a couple of minutes. I think there was a bit of a technical blip. Some people were put in a breakout room and people are rejoining now. So
jumping to a special room.
The special, yeah, we're going to a
we were in the special room.
Oh, we know who you are. You will be sent to the special room.
Yeah.
And
The reason.
And yeah, people are coming back in again now.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah. So, you know, they're all shut. Sorry, apologies. That was a bit of yeah.
We're working on forgiveness. It's fine.
Honestly, it's fine. It was really nice. I just met some nice people in the breakout room. Lovely. Okay, so while we wait, we're just going to go into a 10-minute practice. So what I'll do is I'll take us just into that practice in just in a minute or so as people are joining now. So I'd like you to hold that image. If most of you were able to see it, I'd like you to really try and hold that image of the wave and some of those examples. And it's important with this practice. So this is the practice that actually helps us with this kind of second part of the spiral. So this really is kind of honoring the pain and the grief of what's happening in the world. So what's important in this practice is to do it to your capacity. So be gentle, but also balance that with, I'd really encourage you to explore some stretch. So to explore the reality of what we're actually experiencing in the world, and what you will be experiencing in terms of pain and suffering in the world will be different from your kind of neighbor or colleague. So however difficult or uncomfortable that might be. So we're going to do a 10-minute practice. So please feel free to turn your screens off if you want to do that. get into a posture that's comfortable for you. And if you could maybe put me on speaker, that'd be great. On the main screen, that'd be fantastic. Paul, if you could mute, that'd be great. But just get into a posture that you know is comfortable for you. And as I say, close your eyes if that's what you need right now. And having got yourself into a posture that you're comfortable with, just bring your attention to the breath. So we're just going to observe the movement of the breath in and out of the body, just letting the breath breathe itself. And just knowing that you're like everyone else in the session, we're breathing in life. Just knowing that we're sustained and connected by this common breath. So now visualize the breath as just a flow of air. So the air going in through the nose, down the throat, and into your chest. And once you've got this rhythm of the breath, now continue by taking the breath into the heart. So you're flowing the breath into and out of the heart to reconnect with a larger web of life. So you've got this continuous cycle of breath, nose, down through the throat, in the chest, and out through the heart, and then back into the nose. So you've got this loop of breath. So now I'd like you to just open your awareness to the suffering that you notice in the world right now. So you might like to, if you heard them, use some of the examples that Paul talked about, or you may have your own. It may be around the natural habitats, it might be around the suffering of people, migration, sickness, or it might be around animals or other beings in the world. Whatever it is, try to make it as concrete, the images and the thoughts, try and make them as concrete as possible for you, as solid as possible. Keep yourself relaxed, but just let these images and thoughts of these countless hardships of our fellow human beings, our animals and the planet, just let them surface in the mind. And you might notice a resistance in you. But if it is safe to do right now, try to drop the defenses. Try to really open up and experience to what capacity you have at the moment. So keeping this gentle mind, working within our capacity, as we've talked about, we're going to try and turn and face these difficulties with the breath and breathe in the pain and the suffering of the planet in its beings. So let's just start by reconnecting with the loop of the breath again. The nose, the throat, the chest, out through the heart. Re-establish that loop first. And now breathe in the suffering right through the heart alongside the breath. You're just following the breath with the suffering. You're not trying to fix anything, you're just letting it flow through the heart. So not hanging on to the pain, just allow it to pass through the heart. Trust your heart. So this breathing in of the suffering helps us learn from it. It just enhances our collective knowing and our understanding. And the heart is vast, it can hold the universe. And you might find that sometimes you just get a blankness or a numbness, or you might be experiencing more your losses and hurts rather than the collective losses and hurts. But these are the integral part of the grief, they're just as valid. And breathe these through too. So now gently let go of your meditation and really try to soften any areas that may have tensed. So that might be in the mind or the body. So as we slowly come out of the meditation, soften these areas that may have tensed in you and allow your mind and body to gently be supported by the solid ground beneath you. So with that practice, it's turning towards the storm that we talked about. And we've just given you a really brief taste of the second part of the spiral. So the honouring the pain of the world, but it's really important to do it to your capacity. So sometimes you might do that practice and things are very vivid for you, and they're manageable. Other times go a little easier, but it's important to, much as possible, as Pema Chodron says, is lean against the points, always try and go for a bit of stretch, because that way we will try and transform. And it's important, we've got the joy, and actually we need to really realise the reality of our situation. So Paul, I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move to the third stage of the spiral of active hope, which is seeing with new eyes. I've been wondering how to do this, and the way I'd like to do this is there are quite many Buddhists on this call, but not everyone's a Buddhist. But there is a practice I remember when I first entered Buddhism, and it was so powerful, and it was talked about by Buddha about being like the elephant's footprint. It leaves the deepest imprint in the mud, and it was actually a meditation on death, and many Buddhists will have this as a core part of their daily practice to really experience the reality of our mortality. And I had a guidance for this, so I think I'll talk about it actually rather than guide you through something else. But there are only two things, well, there are two certain things in life that we can be certain of. And the first one of these is that we will die. There's no getting away from that. We're born, we live, we get old, and we will die. And intellectually, we often get that. Experientially, we don't really kind of believe it. It's a bit like smokers don't really believe they get cancer, but it's true. And by meditating on that day in, day out, and by observing reality around us, we eventually come to what's called a realization of death. And that's part of a three-part reflection. And the second part of the reflection that we're certain of is we're certain we just don't know when it will be. Okay, unless we've been given a terminal diagnosis, which is an interesting situation, but most of us, we don't know. And so kind of living with that again, we're prompted to ask a question that if death is certain, we don't know when it's going to be, how do we live? How do we actually live? And I kind of, two examples that, that kind of bring home a positive perspective of this. One was my ex-wife, Anita, who used to work in a hospice many years ago. I remember she used to tell me that there were two kinds of people in the hospice. There was the people who really looked happy and peaceful, and who actually come to terms with the fact that they were on their last days, and there were people who wouldn't accept that reality, and they were very unhappy and struggled. Okay. So really coming to terms with our own mortality is a very powerful and positive thing to do, because we can then really think about what's meaningful and important to us and decide how are we going to live. And that becomes an ethical question, actually. So, and yet the other example I was going to give, and I did hear a story about this, and I think it's indicative of experiences some of us might have, as somebody given a terminal diagnosis for cancer. You've got 6 months to live. And this particular story, and I don't think it's just anecdotal, I think it is, I think it's a real life story of this chap was told he was going to die, and he really came to terms with it, and he changed everything he did about the way he lived. He focused on everything that was important to him. And one day the family were gathered and the phone rang, and he picked the phone up, and he came off, and he just looked in shock and looked really upset. And his family said, "What on earth's the matter?" He says, "It's the doctor's just been on the phone. They've made a mistake on my diagnosis, and I'm okay." And they said, "Well, why do you look so shocked?" He said, "Because I fear I'm going to lose the way I've been living for the last 2 or 3 months. I feel I might go back to the old habits and things like that." So I think this is really, really powerful practice. And So in terms of seeing with new eyes, I just wanted to read a little bit from Joanna Macy, what this stage is like. What is it that we can collectively realize about going forward? In fact, I think I'll show a slide first, and then I'll come on to the reading, and then we'll move on to the final stage. Just bear with me. Yes, so this is the third stage of seeing with new eyes. And in Tricycle magazine, there's an article from Stephen Batchelor. And he sort of said, well, it's the same for extinction, isn't it? Extinction is certain. Yeah, so, it might be 1 billion years away when, the Earth just burns up, which we know it will do. Or it might go sooner through, nuclear explosion, or a terrible virus, or climate change. So we don't actually know that. We don't know when it's, so we get all these predictions, but we don't know when it will be. But we do know it's going to happen sometime. And so the question is, how should we live now? And I was thinking about this, and actually, how I want to live is to choose the story of moving from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. And it reminds me of what Carla Pierce was saying yesterday about the choice that we have. Yeah, and it reminded me of Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, who said there's a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap is our freedom to choose. And in fact, it's our only freedom. That's what he said. And people who know me, I'm passionate about mindfulness, because by adopting mindfulness, we can start to create that gap instead of being victim to our own reactivity. And one of the things that inspired me about Carl says, yes, and in that gap, we can make choices about how our agency, how we actually deal with the situation, what we do to move us towards a life-sustaining society. But also she talked about inner agency, the inner capacity to be able to deal with the difficulties that we have, to turn towards the storm and still be resilient and still access joy in the moments of joy. These are such important kind of qualities that we can cultivate, particularly through mindfulness, and particularly by embracing many of the ideas and thoughts that have been coming through this week through this wonderful universal education idea that Lama Yeshe's brought to the world and has been presented to us in its glory through the Big Love Festival. So we have so much resource if we just access our capacity, our ability to choose what we do in the reality that we're facing. So in terms of Joanna Macy, this is what she said about this seeing with new eyes. And I really love this short passage. Seeing with new eyes, we recognize that we're not separate individuals in our own little bubbles, but connected parts in a much larger story. A question that helps us to develop this wider view is, what's happening through me? Is the sixth mass extinction happening through us as a result of our habits, choices, and actions? Are we just going with our reactivity and doing what we've always done? By recognizing the way we contribute to the unraveling of our world, we identify choice points at which we can turn towards its healing. And actually, we have a choice point today. I'm going to present that to you in the next section. So we can do something collectively, 62 of us today, to move this trajectory that we're on. And it's not big things. I mean, it's just people say it's so overwhelming. How can I respond to this? The small actions that we decide to take and do take them, it's the many, many, many millions of small actions that will give us a chance. And I'd really hope that the 62 small actions we can agree on today that you can go away and implement tomorrow that will start to keep this whole process. It's not just Big Love Festival where these conversations are going on. They're going on all around the world now in communities that we can't perhaps see at the moment. But, people are in Extinction Rebellion terms, we're rising up because we can and we need to. How could the great turning, the question, how could the great turning happen through me? It invites a different story to flow through us. This type of power happens through our choices, through what we say and do and are. And one thing I didn't say at the beginning, when I said to Victoria that I didn't want to talk about the business work I used to do 18 months ago, because through a Joanna Macy workshop, I decided I had to give up my business work, literally stop doing it, if I wanted to dedicate myself to the work that we're now doing and the reason that Ros and I are here today. You know, so that's how it can happen, how it can really change things dramatically on an individual basis. So let me put the screen back up. Not messed up yet, so let's hope it keeps going. And we're going to move to the going forth stage. And what I want to do is, well, it's all talk this, Paul. What about the action? Well, I want to show a short film of a guy in India who really cared about something and he turned it into action from small beginnings. So we're going to the final stage, which is going forth of the spiral. And as I said before, the spiral, you know, we go around it and round it as often as we want to and need to. But as you see on going forth, we're talking about seeds going out to seeds of this life-sustaining society, or ripples in water, you know, that will go wider and wider. So the final stage is really an invitation to come up with something that you feel that you can commit to, you know, to yourself and share with others, that will, you know, move you and also ourselves collectively to this society. So the first stage of this is just to think about this question. So like Avros, he really loved oceans, and that inspired him to create that fantastic project. So what is it you really care about, that you would want to see some change? I think what I'd like to do then is invite you just to imagine that it actually, what it is you cared about is resolved, flourishes, becomes a reality sometime in the future. Yeah, so your wish is granted, if you like, about the thing that you care about that needs changing. And just close your eyes for 2 minutes and imagine what it would feel like and look like if it came to fruition. And just feel that, how it is in your body when a wish has come true. And then the third stage is just to think about, well, what might your small step be like? Commit towards it. It might just be writing to your MP. You know, it might be adopting something that you've learned from this week, from the 16 guidelines. You might want to become a trainer. You might want to take on a mindfulness daily practice. You might want to work with some of the people who are suffering from the fallout of the unraveling. Just something that's, and you just make some inquiries about how that might be. So something that's doable, but it takes you feel courageous enough to commit to it, so that, you know, it will happen as a result of this. So I think about the chap in India. You know, he cared about oceans, and I guess he, you know, some in his quiet time, he thought about the clean beaches and the clean oceans as a result of that project. So he could imagine that, and this is happening all around the world as a result of this now. And this single small step was to pick up some bottles on the beach. Just went out and did it and started. And Ros and I talked about this, and I want to share, you know, I've already thought about, you know, what I really care about is this work that we do and spreading the message. So my single small step is the record. I've committed to, when we get the recording for this session, is send it to 500 people that I know. Yeah, and, you know, before the end of January or something, but make sure other people have an opportunity to share this. Do you want to say, Ros, what you?
Yeah, I'm happy to. My working life and I still care very deeply about is self-empowerment and equality. And so I'm involved in quite a few areas, but the in all the areas, I think the small thing that would make the biggest difference, if I did this and encouraged it, to pay it forward. So for me, when I receive things, whether it's help or physical things, I get a lot of stuff given to me for the refugees. And when I give those on, then sometimes the refugees then give what they've got on as well. And that to me is such a brilliant ripple of pay it forward. And it also gives back dignity and equality. So the encouraging and making sure I pay it forward. And I just love that. I love that idea.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay, so here's the task. We're going to break out rooms again. So this time 5 people. So there'll be a total of 12 minutes. So if you can divide that up, it's 2 and a bit by my maths. And really just share, what it is that you imagined and what your step is. The reason for sharing is when we set an intention to share, it embeds it. Okay. So sharing a vision embeds it. So if we just think about it ourselves, it can disappear. If we write it down, it becomes stronger. If we share it with somebody, it becomes even stronger. And today we're going to share it twice. So we're going to invite you to share it twice. We're going to invite you to share it with your group. And also when you get back into the chat box, just the top line. So there's really very strong possibility that will happen. And these 60 actions will go into the world. They'll seed this life-sustaining society. So do you want to arrange the groups, Ange? Would you like to do that? Cool. Oh, rushing through the door.
Oh, yes.
Look at that.
We were running back now, look. Okay. Okay, lovely to see everybody back. So hopefully the discussions were rich or at least thought-provoking. If you couldn't have anything straight away, then, this might be the thing that you kind of mull over. But for those of you that have managed to even distill a little seed of an idea, we're not going to go through them, but it really helps your commitment if you can write it down. So as much as possible, just in a short way, if you could use the chat box now and just type in what your kind of seed or idea or, kernel of an idea is, just so other people might get inspired by what you write. But also it does help embed it for you. So just feel free. We're just going to spend the next couple of minutes doing that. And then Paul will just round off the session for us. And there's a couple of comments about people needing time to reflect. That's great. And you might change or refine. It's more about being able to kind of just at least set that going forth seed. So Paul, maybe while people enter the final ones, do you want to just round us off?
Yeah, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm going to beg an extra 5 minutes so I can include with the rounding off a very short video from Joanna Macy, which I just find totally inspiring. I would feel I've neglected my duty of bringing a completeness to this. So if I can beg forgiveness, which I said at the beginning to keep you an extra 5 minutes, and I'm going to just cue that up and then just say a few final words and then hand back to Victoria just to finish off. So I'll just put the video up. And I've just been looking at some of the intentions. They look wonderful. So thank you for that. Okay.
How do we be fully present to our world at a time when the suffering and the prospects for conscious life forms are so grim? The living systems of Earth are coming apart under the onslaught of the industrial growth society scrambling for the last dollars. There never has been guarantee for human life. All the wise ones tell us that. But it's that knife edge of uncertainty where we come alive to our truest power. This is the biggest bite out of the tree of knowledge in 5,000 years. It's a recognition that our planet is a living system and we belong to it, like cells in a living body. You can't pick up any piece of this world, a stone, a twig, without finding it hitched to everything else in creation. Now is emerging a fundamental change, like green shoots coming through the rubble of a dysfunctional civilization. The greatest, largest social movement in human history. As people acting in defense of life wake up to the grandeur of who they really are, look into the eyes of any being, you can see, we're in this great mystery.
Okay, so just like to just sit for a moment and just really reflect on the session today. Reflect if you've been to previous sessions this week as well. And just appreciate being with this community in this short time and the meaningful conversations that we've been having. Reflect on your intention if you were able to articulate that, but if not, have an intention to articulate it as soon as you can, and perhaps write it down as well, which is very helpful. And on a larger scale, dedicate all the energy that we've created, all this power, to awakening to our own potential and helping others awaken to their potential. And that all this collective energy that we're creating, all this positive intention, all these skillful actions will actually lead to the welfare of all beings and the healing of the earth. And I've adapted a very well-known Tibetan dedication prayer for today. So may the awakened heart and mind grow where it has not grown, and where it has grown, may it flourish forevermore. Okay, thank you everyone, and I'll hand over to Victoria now, maybe say a few last words.
Okay, I just want to say, Paul and Ros, I'm absolutely honored to be part of this session, and I'm blown away by just your kindness and generosity in sharing all of these tools, all your skills, all your enthusiasm and passion, this important area of development that we need. And I feel like I've been able to make some commitments today, and so it's been very practical, and I've crystallized and I've got some clarity on how I'm going to navigate these huge changes in the world that we're seeing unfold. So thank you so much for that. And just to share with everyone that Paul and Ros are actually offering a course at the end of January. I think it's January 31st.
Yeah.
Angela, are you going to put the link in the chat box? And it's a free course, so it's being offered by Paul for free. And I really encourage you to take advantage of that and to share. If you felt moved today, please share this with others, because we're a network and people listen to people. And I think that's really a great opportunity. So thank you both, Paul and Ros. Our next session in the festival is Pamela Caton this evening. She's at 6 p.m. London, UK time. Pamela is going to talk to us about creating compassionate cultures and the work she does in the classroom with children and her approach to training teachers. You know, Pam is a pioneer in the ethical approach to education in schools. She's been doing it for decades. And let me tell you, you do not want to miss this one. She is crystal clear, really good speaker and presenter. So I highly, highly recommend that. If you can't join her session, please register anyway so that we can share the recording with you after. FDCW is a charity and we do rely on donations. So as Ros was saying earlier, if you have benefited today, please consider paying it forward by making a donation. Angela is going to put that in the chat box. That way we can continue to develop tools for compassion and wisdom and share them with other people. And please keep coming to the sessions. Thank you so much, everyone. And will we open the mics and everybody say goodbye and just say
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.